There's a species of toads in Germany known for puffing up so much during mating season that some have been known to literally explode.
Like civilians that live in the area during the middle of the night, you just hear popping sounds
That's
from
wild.
these toads exploding. Have you guys heard of this? Like, is there any truth to that? Like,
We've been in areas where some of these frogs will just inflate and inflate, and they're just.
all right, here we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Our Herd, the official Toledo Zoo podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Corey.
I'm Caitlin.
And we're here with you today to talk all things about the Toledo Zoo. And so today, it's Herpin time.
It's Herpin time.
And so what does that mean for us?
It means we got our herpetology team with us.
All right, cool. We've got some special guests with us here today. We've got two members of our herpetology team. Go ahead and introduce yourselves here.
Hey guys, I'm Nick. I'm one of the managers in the herp department.
And I'm Herp Keeper Sam, and I'm one of the herp keepers in the reptile house.
I think both of you guys are pretty famous on our social media platforms. You guys have probably seen them around quite a bit, whether it be in our short form silly videos or kind of managing these incredibly venomous and dangerous species. It's the coolest job, I feel like, is seeing you guys do what you do with them.
And that's why we're having them on the podcast first.
Yes, we're so happy to have you guys on here first because, man, oh man, your guys' world is a crazy one to talk about.
Our first victims. So I think we should explain why we're having these guys on our podcast first. Anytime that we want to do something, they're always down.
Yes.
Or they're coming to us with ideas. And so we're like, you know what? Who do we have on the podcast first? The herp team. We got to have them on. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, should be a good time. I hope you guys are ready for this.
We'll see.
Great. Okay. So again, this is our first episode and this is our first time with guests on here. So if you're tuning in for the first time, again, welcome. Our herd is kind of this open forum to be able to discuss all things around the Toledo Zoo or just zoological studies in general. For us, we're not professionals in this field as far as like zookeeping goes. So we're just alongside with these audiences being able to ask you guys these questions and kind of learn a little bit more about what it is that's going on in your world. And along the way, I think we'll have some fun, some nice casual conversations and see where all this leads us.
Sounds good.
Aw, they're so cute. Okay.
They're so in sync.
They're so in sync. All right. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves? How long have you guys been at the zoo and what are your exact positions here?
You want to take it first?
Herp Keeper Sam, as I said.
Duh.
I've been at Toledo for almost 6 years. It'll be 6 years in April.
That's already 6 years.
That's
Oh my
Crazy.
gosh.
Now, what animals do you like specifically work with in herpetology?
Mainly our lizard collection. I also take care of Baru and our Tuataras and our frogs.
Yeah, we kind of make Sam take care of a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It's because she's
a lot
great.
of animals. A lot of little animals.
She does a fantastic job with it. I'm Nick. I've been here a long while, kind of a loaded question, but I started out actually as a zoo teen here when I was 14 back in 2006. Kind of worked my way up as a volunteer, got involved in the herp department. I actually originally wanted to be a big cat keeper, so decided could kind of make a bigger difference with working with reptiles. And like you guys said, the reptile team is crazy and wild, and we're always doing weird stuff. So there was a lot of draw when I was first kind of getting into the zoo field. And then I became a herp keeper for a number of years. And then about 2 or 3 years ago, I became a area manager. So I predominantly oversee the museum. So a lot of our venomous collection and then also our invertebrate collection.
That's amazing. So you've literally seen just about every position in your guys' department.
Yeah. Everything from volunteer to dealing with crickets to our spray toad technician to dealing with venomous snakes, crocodilians, tuataras, lizards. And now I'm learning the expertises of invertebrates. So that's always fun.
The word herpetology, it took me a second to wrap my head around like, why is it herpetology, not like a reptile keeper or an amphibian keeper? What is herpetology exactly?
The literal definition for herpetology is to creep and crawl. So most reptiles. Yep.
So y'all are creepy crawlies?
Yep.
I like
so,
it.
yeah, there's a lot of fun jokes when we start out tours discussing creeping and crawling. And a lot of times that's what people kind of associate when they think of reptiles and amphibians. So it is technically the definition of the study of reptiles and amphibians. So, but to creep and crawl.
It's so funny hearing that Nick, you wanted to be a big cat keeper, because I really cannot see you working with a tiger. I feel like that would just not be good. But Sam, is that the same for you? Like, did you want to do something else?
First started in this field. But at my old zoo, I was a swing keeper. So I actually had the opportunity to work in every department. And that was super helpful as my first full-time position. After I worked with the big cats, I was like, okay, these animals are really cool, but it's just not what I wanted out of this field. The birds were just too much. There was too high maintenance and they scare me a little bit. But once I started working with the reptiles, I've always had like this background interest in like lizards and snakes and things like that, frogs. But I just didn't think of it as a career path until I actually started working with them in a zoo. And I was like, oh, these animals are really cool. I like that we can be creative and design their exhibits. And it's such a diverse collection of animals. Even though like reptiles and amphibians are always lumped together, they're actually very different from each other. So taking care of frogs and taking care of lizards is two completely different things. And the fact that in this one department you can do everything, it's enriching for me and it's fun. And I like designing exhibits and learning about the different species. So it was just a more fun department for me to be in.
I think that's a good point, is that it seems like for each department, like you deal with different animals, but you're also caring for them in different ways. Like they have different needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're like designing little homes for frogs. You're an interior designer for reptiles.
I'm better at interior designing for reptiles than I am for myself.
Nick, what about you?
Yeah. So early on in my career, it was that same kind of idea of big cats and kind of that cool, like, oh, you get to work with tigers, and snow leopards was really a big focus of mine. But kind of early on in volunteering and kind of working around some of these departments, I kind of saw what Corey was kind of talking about, where even though you're working with a diversity of species in any department, it's such different work. So one of the big things with being a big cat keeper is you're not actively in the same space with the animal, hopefully. But with reptiles, you really are getting in their space. I mean, you're handling venomous species with the appropriate tools and whatnot, but you're directly working with those animals. And there's really a draw for me being more hands-on and being able to work with those species. Being able to hold lizards or move amphibians around was always a big draw. The other big part of my interest, a lot of the same things that Sam mentioned, but one of the big parts was really that people already kind of love tigers and snow leopards. It's not a hard sell, but snakes, not everybody's in that camp yet. So one of my big things was really just being able to advocate for these species that I found fascinating and loved, and being able to be kind of the champion for them. So that was kind of a really big draw. There's nothing better than taking somebody who's really not keen on reptiles and especially snakes and kind of just flipping the script and being able to show them in a new perspective or kind of new fascinating way.
That's awesome. And I like how you said that you guys handle these animals. Now, you can't just walk into a zookeeping herpetology job and handle these animals. And I think a lot of people watching this podcast, listening, or just at the zoo, they're wondering, like, how do I become a zookeeper? How do I become a herpetology keeper? Can you guys explain like your education background? Just like give people a synopsis of how you got into your positions.
Yeah, what does it take to
What
do?
does it take?
What does it take to do what it is that you guys
A lot
are
of
doing?
working for free. It was a lot of internships. In the beginning, it's really just getting any animal job that you can. I call it animal sense. It's just knowing how to work around animals. It doesn't matter what animals in the beginning. If you're fortunate enough to know what you want to work with in the beginning, sure. But I worked in dog shelters, pet stores. I worked with big cats and birds and fish and small primates. But once you start to get the experience of being in the field and like managing how to be in the field, then you can start getting more specific if you know what you want to work with. But most people that I've worked with have a degree. I have a bachelor in science, so I have an ecology degree. But as long as you have something science related for the most part, just so that you can get that animal sense and have that foundation.
Yeah, and for us, of course, we didn't study that. So what do those studies look like in school? If you're studying to become a zookeeper, are these courses closely related to what the job is actually like? Or is it more of all the background work, learning about the animals and whatnot? I've always been curious about what those studies actually look like when you're in there.
Some of it is just getting the foundation. Like ecology is just ecosystems. So that's helpful for building exhibits, like bioactive exhibits. I found myself touching back on what I learned in college. Otherwise, it's just kind of baseline science.
Okay.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. I would say maybe about 10% of just getting that kind of foundational knowledge of kind of biology, ecology, kind of how the different systems work. So my degree is in environmental science. I have a bachelor's. And a lot of it was, talking about kind of the ways these animals work in the environments, but you're not learning about how to handle a viper in any bookwork or coursework, especially at a, pretty common university. So one of the things that it's really kind of that first stepping stone into what an old colleague told me was that degree is really your stepping stone into the interview process. And then everything else is what you put into it. So volunteering, internships, doing trainings, going to conferences, all that stuff really bodes well into getting that kind of footwork to go into that field. And then most of it is really on the job learning. I would say 90% of my job day to day, I learned here at the zoo. Again, there's not a lot of places you can go and learn how to work a mamba other than the place that has the mamba you're going to be working with. So.
Work a mamba.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Now, I've heard a lot that the zookeeper field is very competitive. What set you guys apart when interviewing for the Toledo Zoo that got you guys here? What was on your resume, do you think, that was like, we want Herpkeeper Sam at the Toledo Zoo?
Nick's a manager. What are you guys
Yeah.
looking for when it comes to zookeepers that you're bringing on board?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say one of the things that maybe not set me apart, but really set me up for success was just being here at Toledo already. Starting out as a volunteer and then going into an internship. People that were doing the hiring were already familiar with me. I was working with them in some capacity, whether it was for free or being paid through part-time jobs. And I think that really just kind of almost became a really long process of a working interview. So it was basically like 2.5 years of working. So they kind of knew what my strengths were, what my weaknesses were, what I needed to work on. And I had a lot of really good peers and even just, managers that kind of said, hey, you need to focus on learning the natural history or scientific names or learn how to reproduce amphibians. Some of those were the gaps that I didn't even know I needed. So that was really nice. As far as from a manager standpoint, what we're looking for, it always is changing. That's the beauty of this environment, and especially our department, is we are constantly getting new species, new even taxa. So taking on the invertebrates, we didn't always have that under our department. So we're always kind of looking at what is our short-term, long-term, and then current goals. So to say what we're looking for is kind of a long-winded question, but honestly, the biggest thing is people that are willing to learn, that are passionate about these species, and then just willing to come in with a good attitude and, that want to be there. Zookeeping and just being in the zoological field is not for the faint of heart. It's, long hours, holidays, working with animals that sometimes they don't do well, and you have to see them going through difficult medical things. So while this is definitely a job of love, you have to be willing to want to be here and, take some of those sacrifices that it takes to be here.
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Sam? Because I've noticed too, volunteering and internships seem to be very important in the zookeeper world before you get into that position. But I've noticed too, does that mean that you always have to volunteer or be an internship at a zoo, or is there other opportunities outside that you can get into a zoo?
It certainly helps. So I'm one of the few keepers here that wasn't a zoo teen. I'm originally from New Jersey. So it helped for me to have the big volunteering background that I did on my resume. But it's such a small field that once you get your foot in the door and do get your first zoo job, even if it's a volunteer position, because then that's usually where they will pull from if they're hiring. They'll look at who's already been working there. But I don't think it's required, but it's definitely something that helps you out and it keeps you in the field, even if you're like in between jobs or if it's something you do on the side. It's something that's keeping that like animal sense fresh, essentially.
Animal
Animal
senses.
Animal senses.
It's like common sense, but
not so common.
not so common.
Right. Now, something I love about the herpetology department is that when I first came here to work at the zoo, it was probably like my least favorite department. And now it's one of my favorites, not only because I get to work with you guys, but because the animals are actually really cool. Now, some people don't think that. Some people hate snakes, hate spiders. Not a big fan of spiders myself, and you guys got me to hold a tarantula. So What is it that you guys like about these species that other people don't? And what are like common misconceptions about these species?
So what I tell people when I hear that they don't like snakes or that they hate snakes, I don't expect everyone to love them. But like, again, I am also not a huge fan of spiders or creepy crawly.
That's a weird thing to hear from a herpetologist.
Anything that has more, I'm more of a less legs is better.
Okay.
Or no legs.
Or no legs is fine.
Is that like on your Tinder profile?
Yeah.
Less legs is
Even since I've started working here, I still have yet to hold a tarantula. So you're one up on me.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what?
So now, can I be a herp keeper now?
Yes.
I have a new respect for tarantulas. Like if you put the fear aside and you actually just look at the animal and watch them and observe them, the people that have freaked out about them, I'm like, just give it a minute and just watch what they're doing. Like
just relax.
Just relax. No two animals are the same, and they each have their own crazy adaptations to get through whatever harsh environment they're living in. Snakes can do all these things and they don't even have legs or arms. They're just like this noodle on the floor that people are terrified of. They don't chase people. I'm like, that animal, you're enormous to that animal on the ground. The last thing it wants to do is interact with you.
It doesn't
and
like you.
9 times out of 10, they just want to be hidden and they don't want you to see them. I understand that people are going to be afraid of them, but I just want people to respect them.
Yeah, I guess
that's valid.
That's one thing I'm interested about then. So there's a lot of misconceptions about these animals, but is there anything that people should be aware of or like should be actually afraid of when it comes to interacting with or like keeping these animals themselves or, you know, anything that people should actually be scared of when it comes to them?
Yeah. So one of the big things
Short answer,
that,
yes.
one of the big things that we constantly get this kind of misconception is these animals are extremely dangerous, which they absolutely are. No different than a tiger or a polar bear. If given the opportunity, they very well may put a serious damage to you. If you get too close to a rattlesnake and it senses that it's in harm's way, it's going to defend itself. So I don't want to say that these animals are not dangerous because provoked or pushed into a situation where they feel they can't get away, they definitely will protect themselves. But I think one of the big parts is doing it safely and admiring from a safe distance. So some of these vipers of the world are some of the most incredible colors: bright blue, neon green, yellow. You put a picture of that in front of most people, take away the fear side, and you're going to get that, okay, wow, yeah, that is pretty beautiful. But I think the problem is most people just associate that fear of, oh, well, it's going to bite me, it's going to put me in the hospital or potentially kill me. So yeah, you absolutely can push that limit too far. So we're not saying go out and pick up your local rattlesnake or your viper. That is definitely not what we're saying. Yeah, we put a lot of years into training our staff to appropriately work with these animals so they are staying safe and the animals are staying safe. One of our biggest things that we always talk about is, sometimes there's this sensationalism of, venomous snakes are wild and flying off the hooks and trying to kill you. And most often they're sitting there and we're kind of moving them. It's pretty anticlimactic. That's why you don't see a lot of us doing wild, crazy things, because most of the time we're moving them in a situation where they're comfortable, we're comfortable, and there's no fear of that the animal thinks we're going to harm it in any way. So they don't have that, defense response. No snake is really trying to harm you. They're mostly just kind of protecting themselves or defending themselves. So if you push that limit, they will defend themselves. But yeah, I mean, definitely don't go pick up venomous snakes or really anything that you're not at least familiar enough with the dangers that are associated. Even pythons, boas, crocodilians, you name it. A lot of our animals can put a serious hurt on you. So we don't want to encourage that anybody goes out and buys a Gaboon Viper.
Do not pick up crocodile.
Yeah. But, there's also that flip side of these are incredible animals and they should be appreciated for what they are, just as you wouldn't go pet the tiger out in Southeast Asia, but you can still appreciate their beauty of what they are.
You talk about moving animals. You guys move them a lot, like with the venomous species and other species. You guys recently had a big move, the reptile house. If you guys don't know, our listeners, the reptile house is currently under construction. It's going to be a great, great project. I'm very excited to see it to completion. But can you guys talk about what is that like for you, having to move these species? We were there, but I want the viewers to be able to get a sense of how that worked. How did you guys move some of these dangerous reptiles to where they are now?
And where are they?
Where are they?
Well,
in your basement?
It's not in my basement. It was a little chaotic, but we're doing it very systematically. So we're doing it kind of in phases. We already kind of had plans, and we've been moving stuff off exhibit to make space for their temporary holding. So we've been setting up tanks and setting up new spaces in our off exhibit areas. We have taken over the greenhouse conservatory area. So that's where most of our non-venomous stuff is going, our bigger lizards. The big snakes are going over there. So in preparation for the big move, which essentially started January 1st, right after.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
I think it was like on New Year's Day. You guys were actually here moving animals.
Yeah, on New Year's Day, we moved 60 animals.
Oh my gosh.
That's including all the frogs.
All the frogs.
Okay.
It's still a lot of animals to have to catch up and move and make sure they're all doing well. But we've basically just been trucking along and moving a couple animals every day. Moving them in the winter is not great. So it's a lot of coolers, a lot of insulated boxes, a lot of vans. But I think we're pretty ahead of schedule. I might be.
Yeah, you guys are pretty efficient. We followed you around for one of those days and literally hopped into the back of the van with, what was it, 2 reticulated pythons?
And then
3 reticulated pythons and an anaconda.
And an anaconda.
Hopping in there and documenting you guys doing that. But you guys have been working really efficiently through that process. It's cool to see how these animals can just be relocated to different areas. It's
as long as they have their basic needs for the most part, once they settle, they're pretty good settled.
What was it like moving like those giant snakes for you? I see you guys in their exhibits and you're like, okay, you are going to be this person, you are going to do this, and I'm going to sit there and I'm going to supervise in case I need to jump in because you were the supervisors.
And then half the time you're the one with the head anyway.
Right. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, I think like 10-year-old Nick, if he could see Nick now, he would be like, this is the coolest thing ever. Grabbing anacondas and reticulated pythons that are way bigger than any of us. It's just the dream for childhood Nick. But I think what was really cool is to see not only getting to do that, because I'll be honest, it's pretty fun and it's, kind of an adrenaline spike. But honestly, the thing that I really was able to take away from that was just seeing how much our keepers have grown. So people like Sam, who've been here for us, a while, where day one at Toledo, I don't think she would have been jumping in, grabbing the giant 15-foot reticulated python that could easily probably swallow her. But here we are, like she's doing it and just does it with no hesitation. Did it amazingly. And of course, always there to make sure we don't lose a keeper to the snake. So if I have to jump in, I'm ready to go. But it's just awesome to see the whole team kind of come together and support each other. Everybody's kind of got a role, but things don't always go according to plan. The animals move, they do something different. You get stuck in front of a log or something. So you just have to be really adaptable in those moments. And I think the team does an amazing job at making sure safety comes first, both for the animal and the team. And then the job gets done. That's one of the things about the team is we always get it done.
You do. You might smell afterwards. I know the anaconda
Yeah.
went loose. I have like a list of top worst smells at the zoo. And number one was the penguins, but anaconda poo is now number one.
Yeah.
That made me gag.
Everybody thinks that being the person to grab the head is the worst position. It's definitely the one to grab the tail and the cloaca.
I had walked in right after everything was completed with the anaconda. And I remember walking in, Caitlin's like, I'm going to barf.
Yeah.
And Pat, our other herpetology manager, walks straight up to me. He's like, smell my finger.
Smell my finger. Yeah.
Because
that's
got into the anaconda poop.
Yeah.
The worst part too is that stuff stays with you for days. It doesn't matter how much you scrub. If you get new change of clothes, it's with you for a while. So we always try to make sure to line up, if you're grabbing the tail, you don't have like a hot date that night or dinner with the family or anything. So, because it's usually pretty predictable. So
I went home and showered on lunch after that.
Did you
day,
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really bad.
yeah.
It was bad.
What else is going on in the conservatory over there? I know you guys got some other exhibits going on, construction. Can you tell us about that?
There's a lot of lizards over there right now.
Love it.
Eventually it'll be an exhibit. We're still working on some of the loose ends of it. I think they're going to also be doing some tours in that area just to get an idea, because that's where most of our animals are now, just to kind of see how they're set up and that they're still here and they're still doing well and very well cared for. But it's coming along. It's another project that we're also trucking along with at the same time of moving everything out of the building.
And for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, it's the historical conservatory that we have here on Zoo Grounds. A lot of our guests wonder what's going on in that greenhouse, because usually it was just like a tropical greenhouse that you could walk through. And so it's been closed off for the last few months. But yeah, we've got an exhibit coming for you guys, and it'll be a pretty exciting one.
Yeah, and honestly, it's going to be really neat. Before it was a lot of plants. You could see Emerson during his winter months. But now we'll give a little bit of a teaser, but we actually are doing a mixed kind of two-sided lizard exhibit where one side will be mixed Australian lizards, and then the other side will actually be a fully open walk-through exhibit for mimicking basically the Sonoran Desert. So we're going to have a bunch of lizards that would be native to Southwest U.S. running around. So you'll be able to get very up close and personal.
Nothing
with a lot
venomous
of
though,
these.
correct?
Nothing
All
venomous.
right, yeah. Just some spiny cactus.
Yeah, just some cactus.
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
fall on.
the most dangerous thing in there are the cactus. So
good to
don't
know.
brush up against those and you'll be all right.
Those are out to get you.
Yes.
Have you learned the hard way?
I have learned the hard way.
Thing. Now, where else can people see herp species while the reptile house is under construction?
Yeah, so one of the things that hopefully most of our visitors know is we actually have a very large collection of reptiles and amphibians even in our museum. As you kind of move upstairs, that's where it gets into more my specialty, our venomous collection.
Things get really interesting upstairs.
Yeah, they get really interesting. So we have our Komodo dragons, which are, of course, a fan favorite. Everybody comes to see the Komodo dragons. We have our two adults, the male and female, which typically our female is going to be on the left side of the exhibit when you're looking at it, and the male is on the right side. However, we do swap them occasionally, so we'll see how good you are if you can pick up when they swap and
Oh my gosh,
if you can
I'm
tell
just-
them
I
apart.
can't tell them apart.
I'm sitting here wondering if it's like, yep, so this is our male. And it's
Yeah.
kind of swapped it for the side.
Yeah, so that's where we'll work with our interpretive staff to make sure they're passing on the right message. But and then the cool part is we really tried to theme the second floor around toxicity or venom. Also, our invertebrates are up there to see. So there's still plenty of reptiles and amphibians to see as the reptile house is under renovation.
Yeah, definitely worth checking out. And the one thing that you didn't mention too is that with our venomous collection, it's the largest venomous collection within AZA accredited zoos, correct?
I feel like that deserves a clap.
Yeah.
It-
Thank you. Thank you.
You guys are
Great job, you
guys are
guys.
great.
Like, in managing those animals, like I've seen you guys do, is so much work. And they have so many venomous species that you mentioned earlier about not having snakes in your basement. We literally have, I don't even know how many snakes in the basement of that museum.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a number of different rooms downstairs that are not necessarily accessible to the public unless you are on a tour, that have at least probably half of the collection, if not more than what's on exhibit. So one of the cool things is, we try to keep species so we can rotate exhibits. So when our members come back, they're always getting to see something new, always being fascinated by these species. But the other big part is we're actually breeding a lot more of these species, not only for us and our long-term sustainability, but for zoos as a whole. As we saw with COVID, there was a lot of emphasis on really minimizing collections and isolating to really what species people wanted to work with. In that time, it felt like we were just growing and growing and growing and taking everybody's unwanted snakes. And what's been really awesome is seeing the team have a lot of success with reproducing some of these species. If you follow our social media, you've probably seen a number of our first in Toledo Zoo history produced, and even some first time in AZA history. So it's been really neat. And now we're having zoos kind of, as they get back on board, they're kind of reaching out saying, whoa, we didn't know you guys had these awesome species. Do you have extra for us?
Can you send us some?
Yeah, so it's been great to be able to produce those for not only our long-term sustainability, but also for just people across the U.S., the world, to be fascinated by these species.
I love hearing everything that you guys have to say all the time. And since you guys have like different histories with the zoo, with zookeeping in general, I want to know your favorite zoo story. So this could be like from when you were a little kid. It could be a keeper story. What is like one of your favorite memories here at the Toledo Zoo or just in your career?
Spill the tea.
Spill the tea.
Pour me a cup.
I don't know. I feel like, especially since I've been here, time has no meaning. Like our department has changed on a monthly basis. And I just like that I get to work with some of the craziest animals. And I especially like sending my mom videos of all the crazy things that I do. Like the video of me catching up reticulated pythons and feeding Baru, just to, remind her that I do dangerous things and to keep her on her toes.
You're like, I'm cool, Mom. Watch this.
Always being thankful that I'm here with you.
Like, this could be drugs, but instead it's just dangerous reptiles.
I could be disappointing you more.
I could be scaring you more.
Yeah.
I don't think I could narrow it down to like one specific favorite zoo story.
Mm-hmm.
Nick?
Yeah,
what you got?
There's so many stories, but I'll tell one that was fairly recent, and Sam was part of it, and a small group of attendees for our Venom Amongst the Vine that we did last year during the Orchid Show. So we did a venomous kind of show demonstration, if you will, where we were all about reducing the barriers. So bringing people, in open spaces with some of the venomous species in our collection, of course, in a safe manner. So we had a kind of stage, platform, and I was doing the talking, a couple keepers were working the animals, and literally the first animal we pulled out was this large rear-fanged venomous species. So not one that would probably really kill you or cause too much damage if it bit you.
It would hurt.
Probably just be, rough day, but wasn't highly toxic or anything. But it's probably a 6 to 8 foot animal, and it's long and kind of showy. And we had it on this kind of table. And, before we started, we told all of our guests, especially in the front row, hey, if a snake does something or starts to come off the table, just sit tight. We'll handle the situation. And of course, the first snake hits the table thing and just shoots off right towards the audience. And luckily the team was on it. They got it back. And, the first row and all the rows they did perfect. Our attendees just sat there.
They stayed calm, but
stone face.
There was an audible gasp from every single person in that room.
Yeah, absolutely. And, of course, this was our first time doing this event, and we had, talked over all these things, but until it happens, you really don't know how everything's going to go. And
that
luckily,
snake was a paid actor.
Yeah. Luckily, it was perfectly worked with, but those front row visitors, they definitely got a memorable experience. I can say that without a doubt.
And it's cool because when you guys were doing that, we were setting up cameras to cover that live. It was cool to see you guys practicing for that event because you guys went over every single scenario, including that one. And so when it happened, seeing it all just go right into effect, you guys were on top of that so fast. It kind of made the experience better because everybody just gets to see the professionalism that you guys have in the training that you do.
Yeah, it was great. The unfortunate part is I don't know that our bosses got to see any of that because, of course, that night the baby elephant was born and stole the show once again. So they went off to go see that.
Everybody.
Meanwhile, we're doing our thing, just keeping snakes from eating people in the front row, and nobody even saw it except for the people.
I saw it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that
but
was
I do
one
remember
crazy night.
slowly seeing like all of like our important people just like leave the room. Like our CEO was
Our
there.
non-important people.
Right.
Yeah, no.
The higher up people. They just
We know our
started-
place.
Yeah, our head people.
Our head people. They just started leaving, and I was like, something going wrong.
I
And
just
then
thought I was doing a really bad job at interpreting the whole thing. It's like, oof.
Yeah, but no, you did great. It's just a baby elephant. Come on.
We were
charismatic
waiting for 2 years
megafauna,
for her.
always stealing the show from our reptiles.
Things literally wrapped up and I got a text message just saying it's here.
It's
and
here.
Immediately, like as soon as I saw that, I knew what it meant, but I also questioned what it meant. I'm like, that's just the strangest timing. There's no way. What a crazy night.
It's
Yeah,
arrived.
when it rains, it pours.
Yes, it does.
Now I want to get into a little segment we like to call the Zoomies.
Mhm.
This is just, I feel like every podcast has a little fun little segment where they'd like just rattle off either like fun facts or quiz questions. And so we've decided to do the Zoomies because zoo, duh. Okay. So
Well, I mean, also, everybody owns a cat or a dog or
Right,
whatever.
right.
I mean, wait, hold on. Do reptiles get the zoomies?
that's a good question.
Maybe like lizards?
I was going to say lizards.
Like, do the Komodo
Yeah.
dragons just like start panting and running back and forth?
I would say lizards get zoomies.
Okay.
But
Okay.
it's usually if like something stressful is happening.
Oh.
It's not like
Happy
exit the
zoomies.
litter box zoomies.
I mean,
It has to.
I don't know.
The,
Sometimes you put crickets in there and
That's
they're like,
true.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, like the green basilisks or the Jesus lizards.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
just,
They
oh my
just run
gosh,
on water.
Mm-hmm.
They're insane.
Oh, yeah.
They get
Okay,
zoomies.
so some do. Some
Yeah.
do get
Yeah.
the zoomies.
Yeah.
I don't
But
know
yeah.
that snakes can have zoomies because they don't have legs.
Aw.
Hey,
Do zoomies require legs?
I don't think so. You just got to
Answer in the
just-
comments below.
Yeah.
Can zoomies or can snakes have zoomies? Please give us that answer. All right. So, first question: turtles breathe out of their butts. Huh? Please explain. I read that and I said, "Excuse me." So Emerson's over there, just like,
His butt.
what is going on?
We need to know about
I
this.
really hope not because that would be like a medical condition.
So is it not
I
true?
would, I would need to call
Yeah,
the
is
vets if he just starts doing that.
Is there truth to it though? Like, is it false?
Aquatic
or-
turtles, yes.
Okay.
So native aquatic turtles brumate in the winter. So right now our entire native turtle yard is asleep. The aquatic turtles a lot of them are sleeping under the ice. So they'll stay submerged for most, if not all of the winter. They can breathe through their butts in a way that they can do oxygen exchange through their cloaca or their sea hole, as I call it.
Sea hole.
But essentially, so they don't have to come up to surface for air
Mhm.
as often. They can actually do oxygen exchange through their cloaca.
It's like a superpower.
Yeah,
Would you
pretty
guys want
much.
that superpower?
I'm good.
I'll
Breathing
take
through-
different ones. I don't need that one.
I'll fly.
Yeah.
Oh, very
I
nice.
cannot believe that is a thing.
That
That's
is a thing.
amazing.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, next one. Some reptiles swallow rocks for digestion. Why are our reptiles eating rocks?
Yeah, so some do, and it's actually a evolutionary thing. It really is not something our vets like because when we bring them down and there's a bunch of stones and a turtle on radiograph, they're like, "What are you guys feeding this thing?" It's like, "Whoa,
Rocks.
they ate those on their own." But yeah, I mean, they have kind of different, without getting too technical into it, mechanisms for regulating buoyancy. So floating in the water. Crocodilians, turtles, aquatic turtles will often do this where if they are having issues regulating being able to sink down to the bottom of a river system or a lake, they'll actually eat rocks
stone.
to be able to actually help themselves sink. Yeah,
I did not know it was a counterweight system.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you kidding?
No,
Because I've heard of there's some birds that swallow rocks, and I heard that it helps with digestion and helping break that stuff down. But it's for
just
weight.
literally to weigh them down.
They're so smart.
Reptiles are very simple-minded.
Yeah.
Our green sea turtle needs to take some notes because they've got bubble butt syndrome, and we have to glue the rocks to their shell. But they can just start eating rocks.
Start eating
It'll
rocks.
be fine.
There probably is some aspect of similar to birds as well, but yeah, buoyancy.
Oh my gosh,
I like it.
I had no idea. That's so cool.
I like it. All right, next one. I read this one and again giggled. Exploding toads. There's a species of toads in Germany known for puffing up so much during mating season that some have been known to literally explode. So you're telling me that these toads are getting horny and then they just boom.
I read an article that reported that citizens like civilians that live in the area during the middle of the night, you just hear popping sounds
That's
from
wild.
these toads exploding. Have you guys heard of this? Is there any truth to that?
I have never heard of them.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that exact species, but we've been in areas where some of these frogs will, during mating season, the rains, especially in Arizona, come out, and these frogs just inflate, and they're just and they just
One track mind.
literally, yeah. And I mean, a lot of these reptiles are adapted literally with a couple things: eat, bask, and breed. So one of
that on a
those three
t-shirt.
most important things.
Bask, breed.
Yeah.
That's our next Fajar shirt. Eat, bask, breed.
I like it.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it's not unheard of. I mean, you have snakes down in the Everglades, these pythons literally rupturing their sides out eating alligators. So
Oh God.
I think that a frog wouldn't accidentally explode itself from being too in the mood.
That's a terrible way to go.
That's a horrible way to go.
So embarrassing. Yeah. Well,
They're still working out some, flaws with that
right.
method.
None of our toads have exploded though, right? You're not walking through the reptile house and all of a sudden you hear a little pop. And you're like, damn, another one. Another one.
I don't have to write that one out.
Very nice. Okay. Now we have a little quiz portion.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Are you guys ready?
I don't have the list though.
I don't have the list either.
I'm terrible at trivia, so
Did
I'm
we
just going to
forget
practice that.
I've forgotten the list.
Did we forget the list?
I think I've got it.
Wait, hold on. Everybody, I'd like to welcome to the stage Maddie. She's been sitting here this whole time. She's kind of in this producer seat for us and is going to kind of help us out with these quiz questions. Maddie, thanks so much for sitting and being here through this entire conversation.
I did forget that she was over there. I'm so sorry.
Oh my gosh.
If you weren't watching, just talking about the snakes free roaming the museum, I was like,
Sounds like we need to give you a couple more tours.
Sounds like you need some tours.
yeah, I think I need some exposure therapy. Maybe.
All right, Maddie, give us some quiz questions.
Okay. Which type of turtle urinates through its mouth? Is it red-eared slider, Chinese soft-shelled turtle, sea turtle, or box turtle?
Hopefully none of the above.
Yeah.
I'm guessing
Yeah,
sea
they're-
turtle.
Okay.
Yeah.
My guess would be sea turtle.
Just to go outside of the box, I'm going to go with the soft shell, but I have no clue.
Well,
That
for
one
me,
was not in the textbooks.
I'm going to go in the box and I'm going to say box turtle.
Okay.
You went out of the box. I went in the
Ooh.
box. All right. What is the correct
What we
answer?
got?
Chinese soft-shelled turtle.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you is that like an adaptation? What do you think?
I have no clue.
They're just gross.
Yeah, that sounds gross.
Yeah, I mean, if they're plugged down in the sand, it's kind of like you want to pee in the pool instead. So, I have no clue.
What is with these multi-purpose orifices when it comes to these
Hey,
turtles?
That's
You
how
gotta
they've
go-
evolved for so
yeah.
long.
They've all figured it out.
Yeah.
That's what's
Yeah.
happening.
But yeah,
They
no,
figured it out.
I'm going to have to look that one up after
I have never heard
this.
that.
What else we got?
When was the first scientifically recorded use of the snake antivenom?
Ooh.
Was it
Is this a multiple choice?
1870, 1895, 1910, or 1925?
I'm going with A.
I can't imagine it being in the 19th century.
Really?
So 1910 was one of them. That's what I'm going with.
I'm gonna go with
Mm.
Sam. 18, whatever.
1870.
1870.
I'm going to be outside the box and say 1920s. I'm going to say that it was a little later than we expected it.
Later than we needed it.
When the reptile house first opened, we were like, hey, we kind of need this. If you guys could figure it out.
Yeah.
What we got?
Nobody got it. It was 1895.
Interesting.
I feel like that's really like that's a long time ago.
I figured it was before the 1900s
Yeah.
Yeah.
because our building opened in 1923.
Yeah, they wouldn't build a
1933.
reptile house without antivenom. That is kind of
You never know.
They were pretty reckless back then.
yeah.
Yeah. Plan A, don't get bit.
Don't get bit.
You're right.
That was the only plane to go with.
Yeah.
No other plane.
Yeah.
All right, next one. Which herpetologist is credited with the discovery of the Komodo dragon in 1910?
Nick.
You should know
Nick
this.
Gordon.
Yeah.
Nick
Was
Gordon.
it Carl Patterson's Schmidt, Peter Owens, Edward Drinker Cope, or Raymond Ditmars?
I liked the Edward name, so I'm going to go with Edward Drinker Cope. I'm going to go with that one.
Do you recognize any of those names?
I
I
do.
recognize some of
They
them.
ring
Okay.
bells. I don't know which bells they're ringing though.
The problem is half of these like herpetologists early on discovered like half of the reptile
Yeah.
species. So it's like, oh yeah, they discovered 68 species. It's like, yeah.
I'm going Ditmars.
Just gonna go with Ditmars.
That means it's probably right.
Okay,
You're
I'll go
allowed to.
Ditmars as well.
Whoever was A, I don't know
No.
any of the names.
Nope, it was Peter Owens.
Peter Owen.
Oh,
that
Nobody
was
got
one of
that?
the ones that I did not,
Not even
recognize.
A. It wasn't A.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Dang. You guys
Dang.
had to
Dang.
go back
Bad
to
at
school.
this.
Too expensive.
Yeah.
Okay, last one. What was the original absurd theory regarding the diet of the Komodo dragons when they were first discovered? Was it they only ate fish? They were strict herbivores? They used venom to paralyze prey? Or they used their tails to hypnotize prey?
Since you said absurd, I'm going tail hypnotizing.
I was thinking A with fish at first, so I'm going to stick with it.
Fish.
Yeah, because they're seen on the coastal areas quite often, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to go with. There's not a ton of vegetation on the islands that they're found on. There is, but it's not like tropical lush jungle. Yeah, and the venom theory was one that's been more recent. So I'm going fish as well.
Okay.
I like the hypnotizing tail thing.
Yeah, I like.
So I'm gonna go
Since
with
you
that
said
one.
absurd, I'm going hypnotizing tail.
Yeah.
Yep, that's the correct answer.
Interesting.
That would be crazy.
Okay.
Good job.
Hmm.
Good job, Pam. Do our Komodo
Do you think,
dragons?
like,
do they
they,
like?
like-
"Woo"?
I was trying to think like how that would what that would look like.
That's why it's
for-
absurd.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't-
Yeah, that's
I
true.
don't know. Hmm.
Dang.
They just kind of
Ooh. Next
to
time I go
lure
see
the fish in.
I'm gonna go look at the Komodo dragon and ooh.
Yeah, they're going to be like, give me more food.
Like, the human is dancing now.
Looks ridiculous.
Looks ridiculous.
Great. You said that was the last one?
Yep, that's
Awesome.
it.
Very nice.
Well, thanks for bringing those to the table, Maddie. Appreciate you sitting and monitoring us and making sure we're all behaving too.
Oh, well, I think this is a great first episode. I don't know about you guys. Did you guys have fun?
This was fun.
Yeah?
Would
Okay.
you come back?
If you invite us.
Oh.
If you bring donuts next time.
Donuts?
Ooh,
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys are going to have to study next time.
Yeah.
I have to start looking up my hypnotization of reptiles and amphibians.
I love that. Again, thank you guys so much for being on our first episode of the podcast. You kind of were our guinea pigs, but I think it went great. And to, show our appreciation, we've kind of created these little gifts for you guys.
Oh, no.
Hold on.
Oh, yeah, let's show
Oh
them.
my God.
So let me explain really
Yeah, I'll take
quick.
this one.
Yeah, so we've decided to make posters for all of our future guests, including this one. So Sam's is Dragon Queen because in a video one time she said that she was the queen of dragons. So she's got some little beauties on her
I accept.
her shoulders. Yep.
Nick's is herpetology because, well, I feel like he is just the definition of herpetology.
Nick is herpetology.
I creep and I crawl.
Yeah.
And you girl. And we have the episode, it's Herpin time. So will you guys please sign these for us? There
Yes.
are little Sharpies underneath the iPad right there. I would love to get your signature. These will be sold on the zoo's website starting at $1,000.
Oh, man. Do we get a cut?
Absolutely not. It's going
Is
to
No.
it
the
to fund
podcast.
donuts for the reptile department?
Sure,
Mm.
sure. If you'd like, yeah.
Where should I see?
We'll get you guys a copy, but these are going to be for us. for when you guys get rich and famous.
We need to figure out like what to actually do with these, whether we display them somewhere.
Right. What do you
or-
guys think? Our followers, our listeners, where should we put these? Do you want these to be sold?
Yes.
I don't know. I'm super excited. Let me see his
These
signature.
are amazing.
Let me see these.
Auction them off.
Gorgeous.
It's so official.
Gorgeous.
Mm.
I'm so excited.
That's
Yeah.
first edition.
First edition.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next time it's
One
gonna
of
be
one.
Dragon Queen slays.
Next time, can I have a Komodo dragon?
Yeah. I got you.
Mm.
Mhm.
I got you. All right.
Second edition.
Second.
I want one of the exploding frogs
Yeah.
in mine.
We'll do it.
Just mid-explosion.
Yeah, just half.
Well, believe it or not, we've used up all of our time. We've talked about a lot of stuff. We're so glad that you guys have been here. Before we get going, we're going to talk a little bit about stuff that's here at the Toledo Zoo, things that are coming up, whether you're a member of the Toledo Zoo or whether you're interested in coming out to visit us, just some stuff that's, on the horizon.
Right. So even though it's winter, we still have many events here at the zoo. We got Orchid Show coming up, and that has so many classes and workshops that you can sign up for. We have Blooms and Bubbly. That is a part of our Orchid Show where you can sample some nice bubbly. I think you can meet some penguins, and then our chefs curate this like beautiful brunch. His French toast is amazing. So definitely get your tickets now. We got Happy Hearts Day, which is a Valentine's themed enrichment with our animals. This one's so fun. And while you're at this year's Happy Hearts Day, come sign our baby elephant Kirka's birthday card. I know you guys have a little bit of a grudge against Miss Kirka, but she's turning 1 in February. So we're going to have a birthday for her. So you guys can even buy her some gifts. She has like a little Amazon wish list because she's a spoiled little baby. But yeah.
Always things to do at the zoo.
Mhm.
And that's the insane thing is even during the cold months, there's always something to do. Cool. So be sure to check out our website for all that different stuff that's happening to buy tickets or to sign up. Again, we appreciate you all for tuning in, listening to our crazy antics, and bearing with us through this whole thing. If you made it all the way to the end of this episode, congratulations. I don't know how you did it. Absolutely nothing but our heartfelt appreciation. So again, thank you so much for tuning into Our Herd, the official Toledo Zoo podcast. If you haven't already, feel free, or you should be following us on our other social media platforms. We're very active on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. As of today, still.
TikTok is still around right now.
If it's still around.
I don't know when
TikTok.
this episode gets posted if it's gone, but follow us there in the meantime.
Yep. And if you've been listening to this episode, you can actually watch this episode and see our beautiful faces. That will be hosted on our YouTube channel as well. So again, thank you all so much for tuning in. Have a great one, and we'll see you next time.